Good evening. We start tonight with the chaos and violence in the West Bank, with figures from the United Nations showing that more Palestinians have been killed in incidents linked to settler attacks so far this year than in the whole of 2025. Following deadly violence in Nablus, Israeli forces launched raids across at least 20 towns and villages over the weekend, with humanitarian organizations reporting widespread disruption to essential services. Israeli officials say the operations are intended to dismantle militant networks and prevent attacks on Israeli civilians. The United Nations has called for accountability. Have a listen.
The Secretary General is deeply concerned at the recent announcement by the Israeli authorities of a series of measures in response to recent attacks, including reports of an accelerated process to legalize farm outposts and establish new ones in the occupied West Bank. The Secretary General reiterates that all settlements, including outposts, have no legal validity and constitute a flagrant violation of international law. The humanitarian community continues to call for the urgent protection of civilians and strict respect for international humanitarian law and international human rights law. Perpetrators must be held to account.
Well, earlier this month, Israel's Security Cabinet approved a fund of over $400 million to establish 34 new settlements in the West Bank, a move praised by Israel's finance minister, who's called for the full annexation of the West Bank. Protests against Israeli activity has been seen in Tel Aviv this week. The Israeli government talk about a wave of Palestinian terrorism sweeping what it calls Judea and Samaria, the biblical terms for the occupied West Bank, arguing that international criticism overlooks attacks against Israeli civilians. Among those countries offering that condemnation, the United Kingdom.
These incidents form part of a broader deterioration in the stability and security of the West Bank, fueled by settler violence and Israeli government policies. 104 Israeli settlements have been approved in 4 years, and billions of dollars allocated to speed up construction. Together, these represent a deliberate attempt to erode the possibility of a two-state solution.
Instability of this kind is contagious, and there are fears that a West Bank crisis could become an East Bank crisis, drawing Jordan, already targeted by Iranian missiles, into a humanitarian and refugee emergency that could offer an existential threat. But with Mr. Netanyahu enjoying another cozy meeting with Donald Trump this week, the focus for the US president remains his war in Iran rather than the fresh violence in the West Bank. Until that changes, there is little sign that Mr. Netanyahu or his government will change course. Well, a little earlier I spoke to Abu Hamdah. He's clinical supervisor for medical aid for Palestinians in the West Bank.
Actually, the situation lately in the West Bank have become much harder to live with, especially with the consistent closure of the checkpoints around the cities, and also the increasing, gates and barriers across the many villages and towns around the cities. And this basically just, obstacles the work of the health workers in many locations. According to OCHA report, in this year, and now we have around 1,000 gates and barriers that restrict the movement of civilians, Palestinian civilians in West Bank, and specifically the healthcare workers. Many occasions, the checkpoints and the gates prevent our team in the mobile clinics of MAP to reach the remote and cut off communities that we are serving, that just located, most of them behind a permanent checkpoints, and the only healthcare services that they could reach is our services that we bring to them across the checkpoints with primary healthcare services, nutrition services, and mental health support. So the situation lately is getting much harder on all the Palestinians in the West Bank.
We saw the violence last weekend, which looked horrific, and we heard about a number of people killed as well. Who do you blame for this escalation that we continue to see in the West Bank?
Well, I'm a healthcare worker. I'm not a politician to speak on that. However, what we are seeing on the ground is that the basic human needs of Palestinians is being stealed, and Palestinians have been denied from reach the healthcare services, from reach the feeling of safety in their homes, and even so the reaching their daily works in cities.
And talk to me more about the work of medical aid for Palestinians, the kind of work that you do and why so many people are so dependent on the mobile clinics that you provide.
Yeah, well, I am the clinical supervisor of MAPS Mobile Clinics, and our mobile clinics program serve many communities that are in remote and distant area, mainly located in Area C, which is under full control of Israeli forces. We bring them the primary healthcare services, and we aim in that to just not treat them, but also to save their dignity and to give them the resilience and strengthen their resilience to stay on their land despite what is happening around them, given the last situation of, and state-backed settler violences and the systematic path of displacement for these people.
Talk us through, the fact that there is this constant and ongoing flare-ups and the violence. How hard then it is for some of these patients and people to get to you and you to get to them, because you did just speak about the checkpoints and the security restrictions that people continue to face.
Well, most of these locations that we are serving in, they located, as I said, in Area C, and where when they need to go to the cities, or either we need to reach them to give them the health care, we must, pass through checkpoints and the road that is fully under the Israeli forces. And occasionally we face and settler violence in terms of harassment and, form obstacles and obstructions in our road. So in many occasions, we just need to use a rough side route to these locations, and it's not that safe to pass these roads because it's not well structured to use by cars. So the people in these areas cannot reach the cities because the checkpoints, the surveillance, the sense of danger, and the ongoing conflicts and attacks from the settlers. And at the same time is also the same danger that we face when we are trying to reach them, because there is no record for the healthcare workers in Palestine from the Israeli forces.
And the medical staff that work with you and you go out in the field as well, what sort of danger do you face and fear and worry about?
Yeah, well, most of the staff are living in the remote area, or the village around the cities. Each day they had to reach our office so they can back up and collect the medical equipments. Then we can reach the communities. So the first challenge is by reaching the staff to the office through routes that full of settlers and the checkpoints that constantly is closed. The second challenge is there is a frequent raiding from the Israeli forces within the cities, specifically Nablus, where I am here now. And this, in a lot of time, prevent us to, move freely to the field. And also, as I just said, when we are heading to the field, there are many concerns regarding the settlers. I just remember last year when one of our team, in mobile clinic team, were heading to Jordan Valley to serve one of the rural locations. They were surprised when they reached the destination that there is simply the people have gone and there's an armed settler that obligate them to be displaced from their tents and their homes. And we could not in that day to just reach these communities. And it's as I just said, that the IDF were also there with a settler, and nothing they do nothing with him. Also, he was, do some harassment for us and for the cars that on the road. So I think it's a systematic path for, obligate these people to internally displace from these areas and have more and more settlements.
What do you want the international community to now do about this situation?
Yeah, it's just simple and straightforward. The Palestinians are being prevented from the very basic and minimum human rights to feel safe, to get access to the healthcare service, to save their dignity. So our message is straight, just to protect at first the health worker and patients, and to ensure that the patients in need for health access to be accessible. So our ask is it's I think it's a moral responsibility for all to act to uphold the international law to provide protection for these people.
It's Mawat Abu Hamdah, a clinical supervisor for medical aid for Palestinians. Well, joining me now is Colonel Itamar Yar, former deputy head of Israel's National Security Council and CEO of Commanders for Israel's Security, which describes itself as an initiative to promote de-escalation, security and regional stability. Thank you so much, Colonel, for joining us here on the program. I just want to begin, before we talk about this letter that the security establishment in Israel signed and addressed to the US president, I want to begin by asking you why this situation has descended into the chaos and the violence that we're seeing today in the West Bank.
Two main reasons. From one side, there are more and more threats from extreme terrorists from the Palestinian side. The risk became higher, especially after 7 October 23. Quite a lot of IDF forces had to implement into the West Bank to try to collect information and to fight against these kind of activities. In the other side, there are extreme Israelis, mainly people from the settlers, but to be very frank, a small group of the settlers, because most of the settlers are against it. But there is a group that is supported by part of the parties that are part of the coalition, and they try to implement their policy on the West Bank. And these parties are saying publicly that they don't want to hear about any kind of separation between the Israeli political system, means the state of Israel, and the Palestinian identity. And they do their best to try to avoid it and to have all kinds of barriers not to allow it to happen later. We don't speak now, even us, don't speak now about a Palestinian state tomorrow. We speak about two main things. First of all, to stop those actions, including violence, that try to make sure that any process with the Palestinians will come forward. And in the other side, to do the things that need to be done, to make it very simple, to try to encourage those Palestinians that would like to sit side by side with Israel, instead of encourage those Palestinians that think that there is no hope and think that they would like to make or to make sure that the state of Israel itself will not exist.
Colonel,
our mission is to try to support those that would like to have this kind of a process that in the end of the road will bring us to some kind of a Palestinian state.
Colonel, I've spoken to members of Israel's security establishment who have said to me very similar things to what you are saying, that essentially there are members of Netanyahu's government, far-right members, Itamar Ben-Gvir, Smotrich. We've even heard from the defense minister, Israel Katz, who's basically essentially encouraging this level of violence. Do you believe that it is part of a wider strategy rather than just confined to settler violence, that this is part of, sort of almost taking on the Palestinians, then this violence flares up, then the government steps in and a strategy is formed to create more settlements and basically, I mean, from what we've seen from what the defense minister is saying, he's also saying that he will detain Palestinians and not the Israeli settlers who are causing much of this violence.
Look, there is violence from both sides. Let's put it on the ground, on the table. The IDF and the security Israeli establishment is very effective to try to stop the Palestinian violence, and there are a lot of success. In the other hand, some parties, as you mentioned, mainly Smotrich and Ben Gvir, as I said, they say it publicly that they would like to do everything that they can not to reach any kind of Israeli-Palestinian process, okay?
But why isn't the IDF, sort of...
I'm coming to it exactly. The point is the overall government policy. Now, Netanyahu, don't stop it. We blame Netanyahu on two things. First of all, that he doesn't stop these kind of activities. The message that he sent is not the message that Smotrich and Ben Gvir are sending. They support it, more or less. They play with words, of course. He doesn't do what needs to be done to stop it. Even though from time to time you hear the right language and the right words against it. And as I said, even many of the settlers, including some of the settlers' leaders, are saying that it damaged the interest of the state of Israel, the damage of the security of all the Israelis, the damage, and not to speak about the moral issues, of course. They are saying it. The fact is that they are not doing enough to stop it, and they close, in many cases, they close their eyes. Now, it has this kind of message is working on the low level of the forces on the ground. And these people, in the end of the day, it's a soldier or a policeman. When they don't hear condemnation of these kind, when they don't see direct orders to stop it, they will not fight against it. And we are now in a situation where we need to make sure that the Israeli government will stop it, will be more effective. And the reason why we sent the letter to President Trump is that at the same time we try to speak, as we speak, with the high level of the armed forces and many others. We don't speak much with the government because they don't listen to that. But we speak with the officials with the professional level. But at the same time, we believe that we need to speak also with those that influence Mr. Netanyahu. Now, Mr. Netanyahu went to a visit in Washington. We sent the letter to Mr. Trump because Mr. Netanyahu listened to Mr. Trump. And we believe that even, one sentence during the meeting between Mr. Trump and Mr. Netanyahu, it's enough to make sure...
Do you know if it was raised? Do you know if it came up in the meeting?
I don't have direct information if it was part of the meeting. What I know is that President Trump know about our letter. He knows that. He know about information about us in the past as well. We know that he got report about our letter, and we know that he sent messages even before the meeting to Mr. Netanyahu that what is happening in the West Bank, it's not only against the Israeli the interest, it's also against the American interest. In what way? It's make the life of the Arab partners in the Middle East that would like to cooperate with Israel and with the US against the major threat to all the Middle East, and this is Iran. When these kind of actions taking place in the West Bank, it makes it difficult for these states to cooperate with the Americans and with us. In this way, it's against the war
and the interest
to be done against Iran.
Colonel, I've got 2 minutes, but I just want to briefly ask you to react to what the defense minister was saying, that he has ordered for the detention of Palestinians, but not of Israeli settlers who are also causing the violence.
Look, I don't have any good word to say about our defense minister. The only thing that I can say is that on the 27th of October, we have general election, and I'm pretty sure that we'll have another government. I of course, don't agree with what he's saying, but again, what he's saying is not so important. What is important is what he is doing, what kind of order he served, and the way how the professional level act against it. I can tell you that within the professional level, on the high level of it, there are many, many high officials that are saying that the current policy is against the security interest of the state of Israel. And we are a group of security experts. We don't deal with politics. We think and we see the situation from the security point of view. And we are saying it's against the Israeli interest. It's not moral. It's against the American interest, the Middle East interest. And these kind of policies need to be changed.
Colonel Itamar Yair, we're really grateful for your time here on the program. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. And let's do everything that each of us can do to make life better to the Israelis and the Palestinians.
Colonel, thank you so much for your time.